Revenge of the Ninja, starring martial arts master Sho Kosugi and his son Kane Kosugi, 6-year-old world karate champion. When he came to America, he put aside his weapons.
I will not follow the way of the ninja.
But he could not put aside his destiny as a warrior. And now, destiny has come searching for him.
I was a novice, young action director. We don't have a second unit director. It's not like the big movies where there is an action director, second unit director. So we did everything with us. We did have 2 units, and I'll explain it in a second, but everything we shot with me directly. So what I learned from Steve Lambert, that the stunt double, many times, most of the time in action movies, the stars are not performing the action because either lack of ability or safety. You don't want to put your star in jeopardy, so anything happened to them. So there are doubles. Most of the action is done by doubles. Now, doubles are usually shot from the back, not from the front. Today's, digitally, they can change the face, but at the time they couldn't. What I learned from Steve, that the stunt double has to remember that it's not enough just to perform the stunt. The stunt may just be jump from a high building into the cushion. They have a cushion, they have a special cushion. But this is not enough because you don't see him. And in order to eliminate this feeling that this is stunt double, you have to create some character in your movement, because you cannot do it with your face. The stunt double cannot do it with his face because we cannot see his face. So you have to make sure that the body language, that the stuntman is animated, and create some body language so it's interesting, it's believable, and it's a real person, you didn't throw a dummy, and etc. Things like this. So that's something I learned from Steve, and you can see him in our movie and other movies. Now, of course, he's a martial artist, so he has some martial art movements, and he has some typical movements to Steve Jim. But after that, and this was my first movie, after that I insisted. Many times I saw a stuntman doing a stunt double doing something. I said, well, not enough animation, It's not enough that you're really performing the stunt. So let's say somebody comes in flame, they have this special suit, they put flame, and somebody comes out. Just walking out with flames on the body, it's not enough. We can do it with the mechanical. Give me human expression. So you have to act. The stunt double have to do some body acting. Either show me that the fire, the flames are really painful, whatever it is. But you have to act. So that's something I learned from Steve.
At the very beginning, when I first got Revenge of the Ninja, I didn't want this character to be a superhero. I didn't want to be a Spider-Man or an Iron Man, in a ninja way. I wanted to be just a step above superior, the top athlete. I didn't want people to think that the character of this particular ninja was a superhero, Even though I jumped over fences, that was the most extreme of, taking it, to the fantasy world. It was an extreme that people would accept because it happened in other martial art movies, Hong Kong movies all over. So they knew they would accept that. But all the other things I did, I wanted to do it on pure physical ability. That one step above that top athlete, if he saw it, a top martial artist, a top stuntman, or top athlete, if he saw it, he would say, wow, even I can't do that. That's pretty damn good. So that's where I wanted the ninja character, whether it was Revenge or The Domination or American Ninja, to be, I want him to be a superior human being, not a superhero. You see people with cables now and all that. Shmulik sent me a story one time. I wish I had it on hand now, but it was with Jason Statham, Revenge of the Ninja. When I went through the van window, he sent me an article of Jason Statham doing that exact gag. They did it with CGI cables. There have been 4 or 5, a half a dozen situations like that where they've used what Sam and I did in those 3 ninja pictures on other big blockbuster movies with big stars. So I'm real proud of that when I see things like that.
Now, regarding this sequence, it's a big sequence. So this was actually storyboarded. You know, I had most of the main action pieces, action sequences are constructed like puzzles, small pieces of action. You cannot shoot action the way you see it on the screen. It's impossible. So it's a combination of many pieces of puzzle that fits together. Eventually you see the action sequence. And that's the impression you get as a viewer. So now, most of the pieces of those puzzle pieces were storyboarded. I have a storyboard, and I work with a storyboard artist together, and we build the action sequence piece by piece by piece by piece. Now, it's true that sometimes, according to the location, we might improvise, add a little bit, take out something that we cannot execute, etc., etc. So, going into this sequence, which is like 7 minutes or 8 minute sequence, we didn't go in blind. Everything was laid out. Not only this, all the different departments, they have to prepare. They cannot prepare if they don't know exactly what you need. If you need to break the glass, the windshield, and at least 3 takes, so they have to prepare 3 breakaway shields, windshield. This is just an example. How many guns, how many blanks, do you need an arrow, you need a bow, what kind of cables, all of this have to be prepared. We cannot stand on the set and say, oh, let's do so-and-so. No, those things are prepared way in advance. So everything has to be laid down. It's almost mathematically, it's almost scientifically. In a way, it's boring. Many times I had guests coming to the sets, not necessarily, not cinema people, just friends or family or whatever, and they stand around for hours, and then they come and say that this is boring profession. It takes 4 hours until anything happens. So that's true. This sequence was well prepared, and it starts inside. So it's not, you say it's amazing that it's the first sequence. It's not like I got better from the first sequence to the second. This was really prepared by myself, by my stunt people, by the special effect people, by safety people. We knew everything that we are going to do.
It was always David Womark, Sam Firstenberg, and the cameraman, whichever movies, whether it was Revenge or The Domination or American Ninja. That was the key, and David was a big part of it, and David was like gold, a lot like Sam Firstenberg. You produce, you work, we love your work, do whatever you want to do, come up with any idea. The only problem I had with David was money. And, because he took his orders from Menachem Golan. So, he's the money guy. So to get money out of him, it was like pulling teeth.
David was a lot with the second unit. Production manager. He was not really production. He was a producer. You don't need him on the set all the time. Producer has to be more in the office to see for the next day. A good producer, a good production manager is not busy with today's shooting. He's busy with tomorrow's shooting. Today, if he organized everything correctly, the today's shooting goes smooth. And when he's sitting in the office and he does his work, tomorrow's filming will be smooth. So that's the main job of a good production manager deals with tomorrow, not with now.
In Revenge of the Ninja, I borrowed his rent-a-car in one scene, doing a near miss, and he made me promise not to drive fast with the car, not to hurt the car, because it was a rent-a-car.
I have mentioned to you guys before that this movie was full of practical joke. I don't know, this was the atmosphere. I don't know how it started, but through the entire shoot, through the 8 weeks, they didn't stop. I was involved only in one. I have invented one, which was excellent. But they were all the crew members involved in practical jokes all the time. So, trying to save money in one of the car stunt, it's part of the big chase with the Dodge, with the van. One of the stunt, Steve asked David to take his rented car. He was the producer, he had the car, to use the rented car. David was afraid, rented car, it's most of the time we buy, for stunt purposes, you buy special cars which are gone. You're not expected to have them, to see them. But for this specific one, I don't remember why, Steve asked David, let's use the car, your rented car. And David was afraid, and Steve said, don't worry, not a scratch, nothing.
And he had no insurance on it. And I said, I promise. And he still didn't believe me. So he goes, I tell you what, I'm going to be a passenger. And I said, okay. I mean, I didn't believe how stupid he was.
And David agreed. And maybe he promised him that nothing will happen. It's a simple stunt, but actually it was kind of scary. It's called near miss. Two cars are coming and they almost hit each other. And usually you have two good drivers and they know exactly what they're doing and they almost hit each other, but they don't. Either they come from in 90 degrees and they skid, or they come facing each other and they skid. Usually if they don't skid, it's not exciting. So they hit the brakes and they skid, whatever. So David was sitting next to him. He promised him that it will be simple, only driving, but it was not. It was pretty scary, I guess.
Sure enough, I hit the gas, and it was like a blue comet, something like a greenish blue comet. You'll see it. I'm hanging out the back, and there's a car that comes by, and he throws a 180, near misses me hanging off the door of the back. And David Walmark's in the passenger screaming in my ear, you lied to me, stop the car.
I don't remember at the time that there were seat belts, maybe there were, but they do all kind of tricks. They surround themselves with the rolled blankets. There are tricks to everything for safety. So when it was over and all the smoke from the tires and everything, David came out totally pale out of the car.
At the end of the scene, when they cut and they print, he got out of the car and literally, I promise you, I'm not lying to you, he kneeled down and kissed the ground. That's how scared and nervous he was.
Wow. It was your idea to do the tombstone in his name too, right?
Yes.
On Ninja 3, The Domination at the graveyard?
Yeah.
That's a great
classic. When he came out, he was so upset. Not mad upset, but just so upset. It was like a superstitious thing with him. I wasn't so keen, doing a whole fight scene in a real graveyard. He laughed at me. So I said, okay, laugh, okay. Because they weren't about to change the story point for me.
Sure.
So and that's what he said, kind of laughed with it. And I said, okay, so I remembered that. So I made I made a plan with Shmulik and Shokazuki, and made the gravestone up and destroyed it. Did a kick and destroyed it. Quick cut.
It's so good.
He was like, oh, now you know how
That's so great. I love that.
We played so many jokes on Revenge of the Ninja, all of us on each other. It was just so much fun.
Now we shot it more or less in sequence. It starts inside, the thieves are coming in, they're coming out. What's his name? The chief jumps from the window with a cart on the top. All of this is storyboarded. It's not like, so somebody has to build a breakaway cart. We don't use a real cart, it's a balsa wood cart that was prepared ahead of time. And so on and so on, everything, and it spills off backyard and then it spills off to the streets and then there's a fight in the streets and then the car comes in, car takes away. Shokasugi runs after his character after the car. There is a near accident. The car comes from the side, accident. All of this is pre-prepared, and it takes time, it takes patience, it takes knowledge of the cinematic language, and there must be somebody behind it that has the vision how everything will edit in the editing room will fit. It's important, even the script supervisor, that the continuity will work, that the directions, not to make a mistake with the directions of the movement, and not to make a direction in the wardrobe because his wardrobe is deteriorating through the sequence. So make sure that there is a continuation. It's always the same wardrobe, the same cuts and in the face, or cuts in the face, or wounds. many people are involved in this, and it's mechanical. And but still, as I said, there is somebody. Now, the way I work as a director, when we do just such a complex sequence, I have a list. I have a storyboard, and I have something which is called a shot list. Every shot is in my list. We may add or subtract here and there, but the shot lists are there. I distribute the shot list, so everybody knows we are going this wide shot, and then we're going into a close-up, and then we're going. Now, many of the shots are so-called inserts, specific, like the leg of the driver on the pedal. This is a shot by itself, it's in the list. Now, when we shoot a scene like this, we have 2 units, sometimes 3 units, photography units. I'm the director, I have the stunt coordinator, I have the stunt people around me, and I have the 3 cameras, let's say. One, the major camera, A camera, B camera, C camera, and we work together. Now, when it comes to those little shots that I mentioned, like a hand changing the shift gear, I don't want to waste the time of the main unit on doing this kind of little shots. So we are covering, so-called cover. Cover is to do the different shots that I think are the most essential that we had to do with the 3 cameras, with the 3 units, with the main, with the actor. Now, when it comes to those, all the stuff that you don't see the face of the actors anymore, I leave it behind, and we, the so-called the first unit and the main unit, are moving to completely another thing, usually dialogue. We don't shoot action after action. The people are tired and wounded and banged, and so we do action, dialogue, action, dialogue. So the dialogue is a rest time for the people. And we leave behind the second unit. We leave behind the 2 cameras that we don't need in the dialogue sequences. And the dialogue is usually done with 1 camera. So we leave the 2, so maybe I leave Steve Lambert behind, maybe somebody else behind, with a list, with a very detailed list. What do we still need to complete this scene, which is missing for the entire sequence? And they stay there for another 2 or 3 days. We call it cleaning up. They cleaning up. And they get all the little inserts, the wheel on the pavement with smoke coming out, the leg on the foot pressing the gas pedal, etc., etc. And they stay there for another 2-3 days while we are already, and then we all unite again to the next action sequence. So that's how we do it. So it's a complex scene. You're right. It's like a 7-minute scene. I know this.
It's an amazing scene. I mean, especially if it's your first big.
Beside the ending, which is the top, the most climatic scene in the movie.
That's like a 12-minute scene, isn't it? The ending.
Was big. We spent more than a week on the road.
The tower was in the script. From what we did on the streets, and then the lead up, eventually going up to the tower. That was something Sam and I and Shokazuki, as a team, worked our way as we were going. When a movie starts, you have pre-production. And that's when all the heads go there, anywhere from 6 weeks to 2 weeks before the movie starts. And then you map out your basic action. So when it came to the tower, that end sequence, I would go there with the location manager and my producer, my production manager first, and with my director. And he would say, "This is the tower." And I would look at it, and he says, "This is where we start, and this is the dialogue where it happens, and this is the dialogue where that happened, and this is where I want this guy to be killed." So I would go and work out the action sequences throughout the tower until we got to the top. Then I would come to him and explain it to my director. And he would say, yes, that's good. He would say things like, instead of doing this over here, can you do this over there? And I would say, sure. Or instead of giving me this here, can you give me something else? Because this was kind of done in the same area so it looks kind of the same. I would say, yeah, okay, you know. So that's how it worked out until ultimately we would get to the end and we'd have a package. And that's how you do it for every movie or TV show you do. You go there with your heads, director, producer, production manager. They explain, you have the script in your hand, they explain what's in their mind, right? Then you go back there alone, you put the things all together, then you bring them back, and then you would basically explain it to them, and then they make changes if there's any, and then you come back again alone with your actors, stunt people, actresses, rehearse it, bring them back. They would say yes, or change this and change that. That's the final touches, and then you'd have it ready for shoot.
The practice was usually, let's say, Sho Kosugi came with a group, with a core group. Mike Stone came with a core group. But then usually what we did, let's say we went to Salt Lake City, so Steve Lambert will start to interview local martial artists. So there were auditions for local martial artists, so the group grew. So let's say Sho Kosugi had with him 6 people, but eventually we had a group of 30 martial artists. Local, we didn't bring everybody to stay in hotels. So there was a core group that stayed in the hotel, but then there were they auditioned local martial artists from dojos, local. Same thing we did in Salt Lake City, same thing we did in Phoenix, in South Africa, in Johannesburg, in Cape Town. Every town we went, there were auditions for, and by then it was easy because all the martial art enthusiasts, they knew about Revenge of the Ninja. So it was easy to recruit and they wanted. Now, at some point, we needed also gymnasts, not only martial artists, because there are some tricks that martial artists training is not enough. So usually in every city you go, there is a university and there is a gymnastic team, and you can get gymnasts in every city.
The Black Ninja, a disciple of evil who kills for pleasure. Only a ninja can stop a ninja. Now, as the police look on helplessly, high above the streets of Los Angeles, he must fight the killer who was once a friend. Ancient Japanese warfare explodes in America. It's the ultimate martial arts adventure. No one can survive. The Revenge of the Ninja.
Arthur was a wonderful guy. He had a heart of gold. Part of my work was to make sure he was a master material in martial arts. I didn't have the money to teach him before we came to Salt Lake City. So I decided, he came there a couple of weeks before. So I started training him a couple of weeks before, and I realized this guy, he can't do it. He can't do it. So on the day, I trained him as hard as I could, and I had never experienced somebody being such a nice guy. He was such a nice guy, but he just wasn't an athlete. He had zero ability. And it was the first time I ever experienced that with an actor or anybody that had zero, but he was a wonderful guy. So on the day, we tried to put something, the first day he worked, we tried to put something together with him, with Sho Kosugi. And, right in the middle of the shot, I could tell Sho Kosugi's unhappy. And Mulek's looking at me going, what do we do? I said, this is what we got, guys. You can't expect me, in a week and a half to train a guy who doesn't have any athletic ability. So we were stuck. So all of a sudden, here comes the idea, Shmulek goes, Steve, you're playing him in all the stunts, just put on the mask and play him. So I started, playing the Silver Mask Ninja, and I wasn't sure myself. That first day I wasn't sure what I was doing because I was playing a character, and I didn't realize in my mind that I was going to play him now every day, because every day he has the mask on, right? So the first few hours, I was playing him like I was stunt doubling him, So in other words, I wasn't playing a character. I was just playing a guy who was stunt doubling, right? And then in the middle of that first day, I realized, well, wait a minute, I'm going to be this character for 2.5 months. So I could develop this character in movement any way I want. And what's funny about it, Arthur, God bless him, he stood on that movie for 2.5 months, and he only worked for about an hour, the whole show. And one time he put on the mask, one time he took it off, and then at the end, when we cut it, and you see him fall down, you know, at the end, when I take the stab in the gut, and then Show cuts the mask. So he had a vacation for 2.5 months. God bless him. We never saw him. He was always vacationing in Salt Lake. He had a great time. And then getting to the mask is the worst mask. If you notice, it was the worst mask you could ever have, but it wound up being a godsend because it made me do things that were weird, that I wouldn't have normally do. Because if you notice, I always try to keep my head straight. If I was doing something over there to the right of me, right, I'd have to start out doing the move and then turning my whole body without moving my neck first. Because the way I had that mask, I had 2-way tape, about 30 pieces of 2-way tape inside the masks, and I would stick it on my face. And after 5 minutes, it would fall off. So every 5-10 minutes, you know, we'd have to redo that mask. So it was horrible in one way because it was a pain in the ass and it wasted so much time, but it helped the character. Because if you notice, the way I was performing, you know, from the chest up, it looked very weird and abnormal because the neck hardly ever moved.
That's true, yeah.
And it just
like when you pop up over the wall, you're like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I love to see too, where Show thinks someone's behind him, and you're like, and then he turns around, you're gone, and it's like it's so cool.
Yeah. You know, a lot of that was improv on the day. You know, probably a good 35% of that movie was a lot of improv for Sho Kazuki and I.
One question I think I just wanted to ask, I don't think we touched upon it real quick, is if you could just talk a little bit about the special makeup effects and just working with Monty Monsanto and the crew, just because there's so many great gags and just, you know, ninja stars in the face and, you know, blood at the end and just so much cool stuff to highlight and show. I was just hoping you could just talk about that a little bit.
The makeup artist, Mone Manzano, I know him from Israel. When I was assistant director, I worked in movies that I was assistant director. He was the makeup person, the makeup artist. So I knew him. In the movie Revenge of the Ninja, we brought few people came from the Israeli film industry. The cinematographer, David Gerfinkel. I think the key grip, Sam Levy, and Moni Manzano, the makeup artist. He's a great makeup artist. Now, of course, makeup is divided into 2 or 3 main sections. The big job, the main job is makeup. Keep the making up the actors. And the second is hair dressing. And then there is special effect, makeup special effect. Now, we didn't need a separate person because in many movies, the makeup special effect is a separate artist than the regular makeup. We didn't need it because Moni Manzano is very knowledgeable with this subject. Now, making a movie like this, an action movie that has wounds and effects and penetration into the skin and things like this, there need to be a collaboration between the physical special effect department and the makeup special effect department, because sometimes they have to work together. So we had the little things. Let's say There is a section where the bad ninja, one of the ninja, is twirling a little kind of a knife like this, sticks it into two guards in the neck. So the first part is the physical special effect, where you have this knife or whatever, it's kind of an arrow, and it has to be safe. So if it's not from metal, there is a metal one, and there is a maybe rubber one or balsa wood one. And they have to work with also with the props department, collaboration with the props department. Then comes the part where it's stuck, it's already in the neck. Now it cannot be metal anymore, it's too heavy to glue. So it has to be done from a light material, kind of similar to the metal. And there is a way to glue it and put special material. Then you have the person and blood coming out. Sometimes the blood pre-exists, sometimes the blood is with a special tube, the blood is dripping. So it's always, I'm just bringing this an example because this is elaborated cooperation between special effect and makeup special effect. Cut, blood dripping on the face, shuriken stuck on the forehead. And there is this one guy who falls on these little needles or whatever they are, and his entire face is covered with spikes. So all of those spikes have to be glued. Then there is prosthetics. There is physical prosthetics. Sometimes we need to take somebody with hair and make him bald. Sometimes enlarge a nose, huge gaps. I'm not talking about small wounds, but sometimes there is huge skin gaps. Those are prosthetics made from special plastic materials, pre-sculpted, and they are glued to the face or to the body or to the neck, whatever is called for. In many movies, not only in our movies, we do it on a low budget scale. Some of them are in huge. I remember that I worked in the movie The Eyes of Dr. Cheney. The actor came 3 hours every day before, because they needed the eyes. There was something about the eyes. They didn't have eyeballs. So it's a special makeup where they put in lenses and an effect around the eyes. So they came 3-4 hours early in the morning to start makeup before the crew came. Now, a little bit more elaborated was like a decapitation. So the makeup artist has to build a fake head of the actor who is being decapitated. So there is a special mold. They take an impression of the head and they mold. They make a prosthetic head that then they had to put the glasses, the eyes into the teeth. All of this. So that's the job. As I said, luckily Moni Manzano is very, very knowledgeable, and he's a sculptor also, so he can build all those different pieces. If you need the artificial ear, a head, rolling on the ground. So I worked with Moni Manzano a few more movies. Then he became the head of Canon created the makeup department. So he became the head of makeup department, so he couldn't come to the movies anymore. In Avenging Force, there was Gabor. He sent another makeup artist to do the makeup.
Did he apply all the ninja eyeliner on set too? Because there's a lot of. My wife pointed out the ninja eyeliner. She's like, "Who applied the ninja eyeliner?" I was like, "I'll ask Sam."
They have decided to emphasize the eyes and let's say if you take Lucinda Dickey in Ninja 3. She has 2 different makeup. When she is possessed, there is another makeup when she is possessed and when she is normal, not possessed. 2 different makeup. This was an idea of Moni. He came to me and said, listen, we have to distinguish her look and come up with 2 different looks for when she is possessed and when she is not possessed. And there was a different makeup when she is possessed. Very obvious. When she goes, when she's drawn to the cabinet to pick up the sword, she's completely white and kind of greenish.
She looks slightly more Asian, like she's possessed by
an
Asian, like a ninja. Yeah.
There is a trick of fooling the eyes There is a trick. They glue some stuff here with strings behind the head, and behind the hair. You don't see the string, and it pulls the eyes.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I figured she was
That's funny.
I figured she was squinting, and they just put makeup on her. But that's interesting.
It was special effect.
The final sequence, Steve, involves a complex stunt where the silver-faced ninja climbs across the roof by shooting a bow and arrow with a wire attaching between two buildings and scaling across it. Can you just walk us through a little bit the perils of that crazy stunt? Because in the book you talk about testing it, and Chief saved your life.
Yes, very much so. He's my savior, saved my life. Well, first of all, when we got to that scene was when I put together the bow and arrow. You know, how I sit, you see a separate scene of me putting together the bow and arrow. When I came up with that idea and I showed it to Sam Firstenberg, I was under the impression that this was going to be done in pieces. You know, when you do something like that, you want it to look as professional because you're a master. So you want to make it look as professional as possible. In other words, you know, you don't want to fumble anything. You want it to look neat and tidy and strong and elegant, right? So I figured we'd do this all in pieces, you know, piece here, piece there, and then we put it all together. When I put together the bow, when I shoot it, when I put it on the ceiling, you know, everything had to be so precise and so elegant and so strong. Well, 2 days before we were going to shoot that scene, Sam comes over to me, goes, I want to shoot that piece in one shot, one scene. I don't want any cuts, right? And I looked at Sam and I said, Sam, you know, to get it that perfect is going to be really difficult because you're going to stumble or you're not going to be happy with something you do. You know, there's going to be a movement that you don't like. You know, let's do it in pieces. He insisted that he wanted it in one piece. So what I had to do for the next 2 days, I had to find hours where I went in that room and I rehearsed it, just like you were taking a test in school. And I just went over it and I went over it. In 2 days, I probably did that whole scene, putting together that bow and arrow and rigging it and shooting it, probably 150 times in 2 days until I just had it down so well and so smooth. And what you see in the film was done with 3 cameras, but at one time. You see it in cuts, but it was done in one shot. Sam, sometimes directors want something that's so important to them, and I'm very proud of that one scene because you know, it was done. Even though you see it in cuts, it was done with 3 cameras, one time, with one shot. We did it a number of times, different takes, you know, maybe 4 or 5 times, but we always did it with 3 cameras rolling at one time. I never stopped. And it was, to do something like that is very difficult. Now, when we were ready to rehearse it, we had a special effects guy. Now, usually a stunt coordinator has his say in his effects guy. But this being my first big movie, you know, and he was from that town, Salt Lake City. Producer David Walmart hired this guy, so I didn't know too much about him. So I met him, he was a nice guy, and he was doing a good job. Up until then, I was always very busy, so I didn't have a lot of time to check on a lot of things. You know, you have to understand, I was playing, you know, nondescript characters, ninjas, Dublin Arthur, you know, playing guys in cars, playing guys in pedestrians walking, setting up second unit shots. You know, we always had 2 or 3 units going, so I was jumping back and forth. So I didn't have a lot of time. And like I said, that was my first film. And I was very green and very unaware and didn't really care about me being safe. You, that's a different story. I always made sure you were safe. But me, you know, I was the top of my game. You know, at 26 years old, 27 years old, I was at the top of my game. I didn't even hit my prime yet, so I felt like I had my oats, nothing could hurt me. So I didn't really care about me. So I didn't check. A lot of times I didn't check. So getting back to the Slide for Life, we had it rigged. I had the effects guy rig it. So we were pressed for time. It was getting towards sundown. And Sam was very nervous. He wanted to get this shot before we wrapped the day. So between David Womark on the walkie-talkie and Sam Firstenberg, and I was up, 29 stories, ready to do this shot, preparing to do this shot. And you got to understand, it wasn't like I was going from the inside of the building to the inside or the other side of the building. I was going from the inside of the building to the outside of the building because we weren't allowed to hook up to go inside that building. They didn't allow us to go inside because they didn't want it. So we had to rig it outside. So that meant I had to let go like 7 feet before I even got to the window. So 27 stories high, I had no safety. So I let go like 6-7 feet before I got to that window. I crashed through the window. So I was going to rehearse it, and I had 200 pounds of sand in bags. I was going to run it through. I had it on a carabiner, and I was going to hook it up, something that weighed 50 more pounds than I did, and send it to the other side with a quick release on the other side to release it, and the sandbags go out of the shot on the floor. Again, the sun was going down, and I've got producer and the director screaming, hurry up, sun's going down. And I said, okay, I'm just gonna do it. I get to the walkie-talkie, and I explained to Sam, okay, I'm gonna do the shot without testing it. And I had hired Don Shanks. Don Shanks had finished his acting work a few days before. So I had made a deal with David Womark, our production manager. Listen, I need a safety guy, so I'm going to keep Don Shanks on payroll and have him as my safety guy to help me. Thank God I did that. I was smart enough to do that.
Dan Shank was a local stuntman in Utah. I know, Steve knew about him. He was a star of a television show, something with Grizzly Adams. He was the second, but he was a stuntman, not only an actor. So Steve was lucky enough to recruit him locally in Utah. He didn't have to bring him from Los Angeles. And Dan was his second. A stunt coordinator needs a second, a deputy. They need it for safety reasons, for many, many reasons, for training, He was great, Dan Shank. The saying goes that Native Americans, Indians, they don't have a fear of heights. And indeed, when we were in the building, 25, 26, Shank used to walk on the edge like he's walking on the sidewalk. No fear at all. He's just on the perimeter, on the edges of the building. We are 25 stories out. He used to walk there
And he got in front of me and said, we're going to test this first. And I go, we have no time to test it. I said, get ready to do the shot. Where's the hookup? He got in front of me and he said, and Don Shanks is a very timid, quiet guy, says very few words. He goes, no, you're not going to do it until we test it. And I looked up at him and I said, no, you're going to move out of the way and I'm going to do it. We're going to roll cameras and do it. And he said, no, you're not. And I looked at him and I said, who the hell do you think you're talking to? You're talking to your boss. Go away, chief. Get out of here. And he said no. And I got furious with him. I didn't understand. I got furious with him. And I started yelling at him. And he still wouldn't let me. No, you're not going to do it. And At the same time, they're screaming in my ear. This is going on for a good 5-10 minutes. Don Shanks and I are going back and forth. Finally, he wins out. He's my friend and he won't let me. What, are we going to get into a fist fight? Okay, fine. Test it. So we hook up the sandbags. We send it out. About 10 feet out, the thing gives way. The eye bolt breaks. And it goes down 27 stories. And I would have been dead because there wasn't any safety. I had hooked up a circus net and I had trusted the special effects guy. He said he knows how to hook it up. So we rented circus nets and put them up 2 stories from the ground. Now, if you fall 27 stories, even if you fall on a circus net, chances are you're gonna get killed, right? But I figured that's my best bet, 27 stories. But the sandbags went through it and hit bottom, so I've been dead. I didn't even think about what Shmulik saw or David Womark saw or the crew saw down below. I just looked at Don Shanks and walked over to him and apologized and hugged him up and down and said, I'm sorry. And this went on for 20 minutes. We hugged each other. And I owe him my life. It's a true story. If it wasn't for him, I would have been dead.
Steve is very, very brave. Steve Lambert is a very brave stuntman, I'm telling you. To jump from one window, no safety, no hookup, no safety net, went right through the glass, and we had cameras outside, and the camera was inside the room, like recording his entrance to the room with the decapitation, all in one. In Ninja 3, The Domination, he jumps, Steve and another stuntman are jumping from a helicopter into the water. And it sounds okay, like jumping into the water. If the water are deep enough, you say, okay, it's a high jump into water. In American Ninja was different. He was supposed, a helicopter takes off from the grass, American Ninja Steve, Michael Dudikoff runs into, right onto the helicopter, grabs to the skids, and the helicopter takes off. Of course, it was Steve Lambert, not Michael Dudikoff. I wouldn't allow Michael to do it. So again, you cannot have any safety because there is no connection, because there are 2 different elements, running on the ground and then going on the air. There is no place to hook yourself in a safety way with a harness. Maybe later on a wider shot, on a much higher elevation, we had a safety harness. But for this specific jumping into the skid, helicopter takes off, no harness, no safety, nothing. If he loses his grip, he's down on the floor. But again, I'm saying Steve Lambert is very brave.
Well, nowadays they'd have you hanging on front of a helicopter on a green screen.
Yeah.
Back then you were 100 feet off the air without a cable on you. I mean, and that's one of the reasons why the films are that's why people are watching them over and over again. You know what I mean? That's why they've stood the test of time, in my opinion. I mean, one of the reasons.
I guess so. I'm so thankful. Believe me, at the very beginning, for years and years and years, I couldn't understand why people enjoyed it so much. I couldn't comprehend it. Now I understand because I've listened to people like you explaining to me, and you guys taught me a lot because, what I do, sometimes I can't see the things that the audience sees and understands and thinks about what I do. But you guys taught me a lot about why you love it so much because, and again, Shmulik and I have talked about it. I owe you guys, all you guys out there, you men, women out there that love these 3 movies so much, great debt of love and respect that you enjoy it so much because you've benefited me because people see my work more and they enjoy my work more, they understand my work more. So I owe you guys a lot too out there. Audience, I get texts and emails from kids that are 9, 10, 11 years old that their fathers and grandfathers show them the movie. They tell me how much they love it. It just it warms my heart, to know that, maybe 100 years from now, somebody will see that picture and, they'll do some research and they'll see Sam and I talking about it and you talking about it. It just fills my soul.